Part 39. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, B.H. Yaoye 11U. Chapter 383. Lu Bachan returned to the north with more than 800 soldiers after a long journey. Read. When all the subordinates saw him coming back, they almost cried. She held onto him tightly, not planning to let him go for so long. Lu Bachan felt disgusted and warmed at the same time. I introduced Gu Changqing and others. And reorganized Gu Changqing and others. He had 1,000 people in his hands and a capital of 100 people, so he promoted 10 leaders. There was a battalion in Wudu. Pei Yan and Sun Shao were promoted to battalion commanders, each commanding a battalion. Gu Changqing became the military leader. Although the 5 battalions are only one army and he does not have enough manpower, he is joining the army with money after all, so he can get an important position no matter what. Therefore, no one said anything about the decision made by Lu Bachan. Lu Zhong still served as military advisor under Gu Changqing. The news of Lu Bachan's return was naturally known to Mukong and others. And Lu Bachan's wife was actually the goddaughter of the king of Yu, and she was also named the princess of the Yu kingdom by the Liang dynasty. This kind of news naturally reached the ears of interested people. Mu Qianhua saw that the bamboo basket fetching water was going to be in vain, and he felt unwilling to do so. Went to see Mukong. She wanted Mukong to suppress Lu Bachan and let him marry her in the name of the Lord of Jin. Anyway, his wife is in the Southland, so if she can't be sent away, she can't be sent away. If she is in the Southland, she won't come to the Northland to irritate her. Mu Qianhua took a fancy to Lu Bachan and had no intention of giving up. Since his wife is protected by the king of Yu and cannot be sent away, she is willing to take a step back. Anyway, I am in the Southland. The sky is high and the road is far away. Maybe it won't be long before Lu Bachan will forget about her. Mukong listened to her request and remained silent for a long time. Since the new year, his health has gotten worse and worse. Last month, the Liang dynasty attacked Jin again. Although Lu Bachan's men led 10,000 elite troops to help, the casualties were still high. Mukong was a little powerless. Although he also wanted to arrange the affairs of Jin land and the affairs of his children. But this matter. Qianhua, his wife's status is no lower than yours, so we can't suppress him. Moreover, if we use force and anger the king of Yu, then the king of Yu and the Liang dynasty will attack from both sides, and we in Jin will be attacked from both sides. It will be in danger. Mukong tried to persuade Mu Qianhua to give up. He valued Lu Bachan, but now Lu Bachan's bones have become hard and cannot be chewed hard. It is easy to grind your teeth if you bite hard. But Mu Qianhua couldn't listen. People are like this, they usually disdain things that are delivered to their door, but the less they can get, the more they care about them. Mu Qianhua felt that Mukong did not see her as a daughter. Her father does not love her. Once she was married, she was no longer of use, and her father no longer valued her. When she was still young and her father wanted to use her to contact his generals, she was given various rewards and humiliated her. And now? Now he only has eyes for his little daughter. Mu Yaoying had never been married, and she was the best at pleasing others. Her father always thought about her and wanted to leave everything good to her. Originally, I wanted to tell Lu Bachan to Yaoying, but later I saw that Yaoying didn't want it, so I asked her to approach Lu Bachan. Mu Qianhua couldn't listen to Mukong's advice. Since her father won't help her, she will find a way on her own. She didn't believe that there were men who didn't want to cheat. Men, aren't they all like that? They have wives at home, but they still think about the ones outside. Once the hook is hooked on the outside, it feels stale again, and it starts to worry about the hook that cannot be caught. They wanted her to give up, but she wouldn't. Mu Qianhua's mind was full of thoughts about how to cook rice with Lu Bachan. She is just a goddaughter, what weight can she have? A native chicken pretending to be a phoenix? I heard that he shows up outside every day. I simply don't know what it means. Although she has been married before, compared to the other person, she is from a truly aristocratic family and has a noble status. Mu Qianghua was unwilling to give up just like that. This was the first time she wanted something so much. On this day, the king of Jin held a banquet in Jinqing to entertain Lu Bachan and others. Now that we know that Lu Bachan has no support behind him, our attitude towards him can no longer be ignored. The main thing is to win over. With many friends and many paths, you may be able to seek the king of Yu one day in the future. The king of Jin felt that the sun was setting on him, and he would have to leave all the affairs in Jin to his son, and he didn't know if he would be able to take charge of it. I still need to help him build more connections. Lu Bachan thought about it and happily accepted the appointment. The banquet on this day was no longer about testing each other. King Jin was trying his best to win over each other, and Lu Bachan naturally felt it. He's happy to see it work. He knew that King Jin and Wu Quanzhong were not at odds with each other, and Wu Quanzhong was their common enemy, so the current king of Jin still belonged to the same camp as him. Lu Bachan and others were entertained very thoughtfully with good wine, delicious food, drums, music, singing and dancing. Everyone drank a lot until the wine was deep and heavy, so Lu Bachan and others were arranged to live in the Prince Jin's mansion. Although Lu Bachan had a good drinking capacity, he couldn't resist everyone taking turns to drink him. After the banquet, he was helped into the room, fell on the bed and fell asleep. When I slept until midnight, I felt my body was burning badly, and I was thirsty and parched. I wanted to take off my clothes and sleep in an ice cave. There was something soft, cold, and comfortable beside him, so Lu Bachan picked it up. I felt something was wrong again, so I forced myself to open my eyes and take a look. "Why are you here?" Lu Bachan was horrified. Seeing Mu Qianghua lying beside him in cool clothes, Lu Bachan was so frightened that he suddenly woke up. He hurriedly lowered his head to look at his body and saw that most of his clothes had been taken off. He hurriedly gathered them up. "Princess, what do you mean by this?" Lu Bachan was furious, frowning and glaring at Mu Qianghua. "Lu Changsheng. Zhang Wu. Lu Lang, save your energy. Stop shouting. They are all asleep. Even if you scream, they won't hear you." Lu Bachan felt annoyed after hearing this. He rolled out of bed, turned his back to her, strode to the door, and pulled hard, but the two doors could not be opened. It was obviously locked from the outside. "Princess, are you doing this to make enemies?" Lu Bachan turned around and looked at her coldly. "Why do Lu Lang say that? Am I not more beautiful than your wife?" Lu Lang is not moved at all. "You're not even remotely as good as my wife." Mu Qianghua gritted his teeth after hearing this, but when he thought that the door was locked from the outside, he fell in love again, fearing that he would not be able to survive for a while. Not wanting to anger him, he just lay on his side on the bed, supporting his head with his hands and looking at him with a charming look. Lu Lang is telling the truth. Don't worry, Jin, as long as Lu Lang doesn't want the news to leak out, no one will be able to find out a word about it. Shameless. Lu Bachan secretly hated it. Seeing her naked body, Lu Bachan didn't feel the slightest spark in his heart. Instead, he felt extremely ugly. "Princess, please put on your clothes." Bocheng has no intention of offending. "I don't. Does Lu Lang think I'm not beautiful?" Lu Bachan said nothing, turned around and walked towards the door again, pulling in with all his strength, but the two doors were very strong and did not sway at all. Not moving at all. Is Jindi so rich? Are these doors made of such precious hardwood? Lu Lang, don't waste your energy. Save it for bed. The night is so long, Lu Lang has time to use it. This woman. Lu Bachan ignored him and looked around the room, thinking about how to get out. Suddenly, a delicate body came up from behind, and a pair of arms hugged him. The blood all over Lu Bachan's body rushed straight to his forehead. His whole body seemed to be screaming. Layers of sweat broke out on his forehead. Lu Bachan suppressed her with all his strength, gritted his teeth, and pushed her arms open with both hands. When she was stunned, he raised his foot and kicked Mu Qianhua back to the bed. There was a loud bang. Without even looking at it, Lu Bachan moved a high-backed chair in the room and slammed the window lattice. With a bang, several window pillars were broken. Lu Bachan smashed it hard again and jumped out of the window. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 384. By the time Mukong got the news, Lu Bachan had already left with his men before dawn. Read. Mu Qianhua was secretly teased by her sisters who got the news. She was too embarrassed to see anyone and locked herself in her room. In order to appease Lu Bachan, Mukong picked a general who had lost his wife and arranged Mu Qianhua's marriage. When Lu Bachan returned to the camp, he had a fever and runny nose. He lay down for several days before he recovered. That night, after he jumped out of the window, he soaked in cold water for 2 or 3 hours before the drug effect was relieved. When the people were more awake, they immediately led their men out of Jinchinj. Later, Mukong invited him several times, but Lu Bachan refused to accept the invitation. He just stayed in the camp to train his troops. After a few days, Lu Bachan got the news that Wen Gongren and his son Yandi were at odds with each other, and Yandi was in turmoil. Mukong was secretly thinking of leading his troops to attack to avenge the shame of Wen Gongren and his men rebelling in Jindi. Before, Mukong helped Yan to repel the attack of Liang dynasty, but it was just a matter of life and death. Helping Yan was also helping Jin. But he had never vented his anger. Now that Wen Gongren had killed himself, he had to vent his hatred and anger. After hearing the news, Lu Bachan did not want to give up this opportunity. He had been thinking about what to do. If his 10,000-man army could not stand on its own and could only rely on others, then he would have to act according to others' wishes. The south had its own forces and territories, and they were all developing and strengthening themselves, with no intention of competing with Liang dynasty. Among the major forces in the north, the two largest forces were Jin and Yan. He wanted to avenge the Fengxiang army, so he could only choose the powerful ones. But he had a rift with Jin now, and Yan, after Wen Gongren proclaimed himself the king of Yan, also became arrogant and wanted to learn from Wu and Shu to become emperor. Now Wen Gongren has built a palace in Dale Mountain and selected many beauties to live in it. Wen Gongren was enjoying himself with a group of beauties in the harem in Dale Mountain, while at the same time he ordered Taoist priests to make elixirs in order to achieve immortality. He, Lu Bachan, was stupid to surrender to him. It is said that some of Wen Gongren's sons were disgusted with his behavior and opposed him. Wen Guangxiao, his beloved son whom he regarded as his successor, committed adultery with his concubine Luo, which made Wen Gongren very angry. After beating him, Wen Gongren severed the father-son relationship and expelled Wen Guangxiao. Now it is heard that Wen Guangxiao led troops to attack Yozhu, probably wanting to take advantage of his father Wen Gongren still enjoying himself in Dale Mountain and the city's lax defense to seize Yan land. Mukong would not let go of this news. He naturally wanted to have a share of the pie. Dog bites dog, snipe and clam fight, then he, Mukong, plans to be the fisherman who benefits. And Lu Bachan would not let go of this news. First, he wanted to train his troops. Second, a general with a city and a stronghold was very different from a general without a city or a source of income. He now wanted to seize a city and use it as a base. In this way, he would have a source of military supplies and could also bring his wife and son to his side. Lu Bachan discussed with a group of generals in the army for several days and nights and worked out a detailed battle plan. He began to quietly march towards Yan. On the way, he learned that Wen Guangxiao had led his army into Yozhu and then sent troops to attack Dale Mountain, and King Wen Gongren of Yan had been captured. The king of Yan was captured alive and imprisoned by his own son, and Yan changed its master. Wen Guangxiao took his father's position and then proclaimed himself emperor in Yuzhu, calling himself the emperor of Great Yan and changing the reign to Yingtian. Wen Gongren's other sons were naturally dissatisfied, and each of them raised a big flag to compete with Wen Guangxiao for territory. Yan's state was in chaos. Mukong saw that Yan's state was in chaos, and then led the army of Jin to attack many places in Yan. When Lu Bachan got the news, he discussed with his generals and turned to Zhaozhou. He had led his army to support Luzhu before, and was very familiar with Luzhu and Zhaozhou next door. Lu Bachan avoided the Jin army and focused on Zhaozhou. It took less than 10 days to capture Zhaozhou. He took advantage of the fact that Jizhu next door was not well prepared and Yan was in chaos, and Lu Bachan captured Yizhu. In 1 month, he took the land of 2 states in Yan. Weizhu, Kozhu, and Suzhu of the Liang dynasty next door sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. Lu Bachan successfully launched a sneak attack and caught the Liang dynasty off guard. First, he used 10,000 elite troops to seize 2 states in Yan, and then seized 3 states in Liang. Lu Bachan had 5 states in his hands at once. The morale of the army was greatly boosted. On the other side, Mukong led the Jin army into Yan territory from Kigo Pass, and the states of Chan, Zhou, Wu, and Shun surrendered upon hearing the news. Wen Guangxiao had been emperor for only a few days. He had several brothers attacking him from time to time, and Mukong's army besieged the city from outside, and he was suffering from both sides. Wen Guangxiao was besieged for a long time and was defeated repeatedly. Not long after, he could not resist and surrendered to the Liang dynasty. The Liang dynasty had always wanted to recover the northern territory. Before, it sent an army of 100,000 to attack Yan, but was repelled by the Jin-Yan coalition. Now Yan sent a letter and was willing to be a younger brother. Liang dynasty was overjoyed to get Yan without any effort. Now Yan was divided, and Jin was the only largest force left in the north. Liang dynasty would naturally not let Jin become bigger. And Lu Bachan, who suddenly appeared and seized the 3 states of Liang dynasty, was naturally unbearable for Liang dynasty. But now he had no time to care about him. Lu Bachan was not yet a force to be reckoned with, and Liang dynasty did not take him seriously. Let's leave it alone first, and deal with Jin first and then deal with him. In early June, Wu Quanzhong personally led an army of 500,000 from Luoyang to support Yan. He planned to adopt the strategy of encircling Wei to save Zhao and first attack Zhaoqiang and Xingxian in Jin to ease the crisis in Yan. The army rushed to attack day and night. Due to the small size of the city, Zhaoqiang was quickly captured. Wu Quanzhong was overjoyed. But before he could be happy, hundreds of Jin cavalry raided the military camp and almost burned the tents and food. Liang Jun was cut off from food and grass, and for a while, his military morale was devastated. Taking advantage of the disheartenment of the Liang dynasty army, Jin launched a rapid offensive and almost annihilated Wen Guangxiao's army. The morale of the Jin army was greatly boosted. Because the offensive was too fierce, Liang Qiao could not resist it. And because Wu Quanzhong was old and frail, he was already sick, and just to vent his bad breath, the bumps on the road during the march aggravated his condition. He has only been emperor for 2 years, and he doesn't want to die early. So he decided to gather his army and retreat to Luoyang first. At this point, Yan was annexed by Jin. Taking advantage of the fierce battle between the 2 big men, Lu Bachan led his troops all the way south and captured the 2 states of Yan and Liang dynasty. After that, Lu Bachan had nearly 100,000 troops. In July, Mukong fell seriously ill and died. The eldest son Muyuxian took over and became the new king of Jin. Lu Bachan led others to express condolences. He took 3 million taels of silver from Muyuxian and ceded Zhaozhou and Yizhu in the original Yan region to Jin. Lu Bachan gathered the army and headed south. The land of Yan was destroyed, Mukong of Jin died, and Wu Quanzong's army was defeated and returned to Luoyang to rest. The big bosses from all parties who got the news were ready to take action. When Emperor Wu Yangbai saw that an unknown boy had captured several states in northern Jiangsu, he was not angry and went all the way to the east to conquer. Seeing that Ma Mingwen had been silent for more than a year, he frequently provoked him. Ma Mingwen has no ambitions, but he is not a vegetarian. Yang Bai wanted to fight for Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and Yudi was next to Wudi. Ma Mingwen naturally didn't want Yang Bai to become big, otherwise Yudi would be swallowed up by Yang Bai at any time. Ma Mingwen also started to prepare for the battle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhjiaoye 11U. Chapter 385. Mom, please give me something to eat. Liwa hasn't eaten for a day and she can't hold on any longer. In a woods, Lucaya begged her mother-in-law Feng. The adults are almost out of food, just leave this girl alone. If you can't hold on, you won't have to drag down the whole family. Feng said somewhat harshly. Lucaya was unmoved by her pleas and kept her food pocket tightly closed, refusing to take out any food. No matter how lowly Lucaya begged, her mother-in-law refused to let go. She felt bitter and astringent in her heart, so she turned and walked away. Su Yawu on the side couldn't stand it anymore and pulled Feng. Feng shook her hand and glared at him. Don't pity that girl. If it weren't for her, your brother and your father wouldn't have lost their lives. It was all because of her hard life. Mother. Su Yawu wanted to say more, but Feng couldn't listen and turned his back. Xiaohe's eyes dimmed as he sat blankly beside him. Is it because she is also a hard-working person? That's why her husband and son are gone and her husband's family will kick her out? Xiaohe was also hungry, but she didn't dare to speak. She was kicked out by her husband's family, but fortunately her mother took her in, so she would not be homeless. She didn't want to be said to be a dragster, and a married woman would go back to her parents' home to live in her parents' home. Xiaohe buried his head on his knees. Su Sangzi on the side sighed when she saw this, and glanced at Zheng. Mrs. Zheng glared at him. Our family doesn't have much food. Although he said that, he couldn't bear it when he saw Lucaya digging for grass roots like a headless fly, trying to find food for her daughter. Just as she was taking out grain from the grain bag, Su Saiquan was already walking towards Lucaya holding 3-year-old King Zhao. Here is half a piece of cake. You can give it to Liwa to eat. It will be fine when we reach Renzo. Seeing her father hand her cake to her second sister-in-law, King Zhao pursed her lips and swallowed. Thank you, fourth uncle, thank you, fourth uncle. Lucaya wiped away her tears, quickly took half the cake and stuffed it into her arms, and walked towards her daughter. Dad. King Zhao called Su Saiquan aggrievedly. Su Saiquan's heart ached when he heard his daughter's weak voice. He stroked her back. Qingzhao has just eaten half a piece, right? Your niece hasn't eaten all day. Qingzhao doesn't want her to disappear, right? Yeah, the little King Zhao hesitated for a moment and nodded. Although she is 1 year younger than Liwa, she is actually a generation older than Liwa. Dad said that she is an elder and should love the younger ones. King Zhao swallowed again and lay softly back on Su Saiquan's shoulder. Su Saiquan comforted her. Good boy King Zhao, we can reach Renzo in 2 days. By then, we will meet your brothers and sisters, and your uncle and aunt, and we will have a lot to eat. Okay. Okay. Uncle and aunt, do your brothers and sisters like King Zhao? Yes, your uncle's family are all good people. When can I see my uncle's family? We'll be there in 2 days' walk. On the other side, Lucaya took out half a piece of cake from her arms and wanted to feed it to her daughter, who was so weak that she couldn't even open her eyes. She was snatched away by Mrs. Feng, who came over. The adults don't even have to eat it. And they feed it to this stubborn girl. Mom, Liwa can't hold it anymore. I beg you. Lucaya wanted to grab half of the cake, but Feng pushed her away fiercely. If you can't hold it any longer, just throw it away so as not to drag us down. Mom, Liwa is also your granddaughter. He is the only flesh and blood of Yawen in the world. You have the nerve to mention Yawen. If it weren't for this girl, my Yawen wouldn't be dead, and Yawen's father wouldn't be dead either. It was all because of her. Second sister-in-law, that Taoist priest just cheated you out of food and drink. Do you still believe what he said? Liwa is Yawen's flesh and blood. You treat Liwa like this. How can Yawen feel at ease underneath? Mrs. Zheng couldn't see it and came to drink. Lived her. Feng couldn't listen. Yawen was all defeated by her. She was a nuisance to my father. If it weren't for her, Yawen and he would still be alive now, and the Taoist would have said that Yawen was destined to be rich and powerful. Susai Quan interrupted her. Second sister-in-law, please stop talking about the Taoist priest's nonsense. Now that Wen is gone, Liwa is Yawen's only flesh and blood, even if it's for Yawen's sake. Feng didn't listen. What do you know? If it weren't for her, he and Yawen would still be here, both of them would still be there. Mom, Su Yawu and Xiaohe couldn't stand it anymore, so they came over and helped Feng away. Before leaving, Mrs. Feng refused to hand over the half piece of cake. Lucaya's eyes were dull, and she stared blankly at Liwa, who couldn't wake up no matter how she screamed, as if her soul had left her body. Did Liwa really harm her father and grandfather? Is Liwa going to look for them now? Liwa is an unknown person, but what about her? She is also an unknown person, so her parents' family doesn't want her, her husband's family doesn't like her, the man she married is gone, and now her daughter is leaving too. Zheng shook Lucaya several times, but she didn't respond. He looked at Susangzi and sighed. He touched a small piece of dry biscuit, broke it into pieces and stuffed it into Liwa's mouth, and then gave her water. But soon the water flowed out of Liwa's mouth, and the cake was still in her mouth. Liwa no longer knew how to swallow. Liwa, Liwa. Mrs. Zheng was heartbroken and shook her gently, but Liwa didn't even open her eyelids. Lucaya reacted, hugged Liwa, shook her, and called her, Liwa, mother's pear blossom, open your eyes and look at mother. We have all walked to the south, we are almost to Renzo, you have to hold on, stay here. When you get to your aunt's house, you will have something to eat, pear blossom, pear blossom. After shaking for a long time, Liwa didn't react at all. Lucaya was panicked and in pain. Liwa, if you can't survive, Mom will not survive either, and Mom will stay with you. Mom will carry you to the city to see the doctor. After seeing the doctor, you will be fine. Lucaya picked up the fluttering pear blossom and walked to the road, murmuring, don't be afraid, pear blossom. Mom will take you to see a doctor. After seeing the doctor, pear blossom will be fine. When you get better, Mom will take pear blossom to buy delicious food. Mom will buy you whatever pear blossom wants to eat. Cao ya, where are you going with the baby? Zheng and Susangzi called her after them. Lucaya was immersed in her own thoughts. She could not hear anything and her eyes were not focused. She just walked mechanically towards the main road holding Liwa in her arms. Sister-in-law, where are you taking Liwa? Yagui and Qiuju looked at her blankly. Susangzi and Zheng hurriedly nudged his brother and sister, hurry up and take a look. In the woods, in addition to the members of the Su family, there were also many people who had fled from the north. They were also resting in the woods, sitting in twos and threes not far away, watching the excitement of the Su family. Along the way, if a person escapes alone, he may not be able to save his life. I want to partner up with someone, but I am worried that the other person is not a good person. So everyone gathered together, neither far nor near, neither far nor near. Seeing this situation, everyone felt sad in their hearts, thinking of their family members who had not made it through the journey. Sister-in-law, quickly take shelter in the woods, there are many people coming. Hearing a loud noise ahead, Suyafu and Qiuju hurriedly ran over and grabbed Lucaya to take her to the woods. But Lucaya was dragged back to her senses by the two of them. She was stunned for a moment, listened carefully, and then ran towards the sound with Liwa in her arms. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 386. We are finally approaching Renzo. Sukingyu stretched herself in the carriage, pounded her legs and feet again and again on her shoulders and neck. There are many elderly people, children, vehicles, and luggage on this road, and the walk is extremely slow. She was lying in the car, not just her legs and feet, but every part of her body was numb. For half of the day, she came down and walked with the car. It was only mid-February when it came out, and it was already May. The early rice had probably been planted by this time. She missed her son, and wondered if the eldest baby and the younger one would cry. She promised to go back soon. She had broken her trust with her child again. It will definitely not happen again. She will stay with her children and grow up with them. Please, noble man, save my daughter, save her, I kowtow to you. The car screeched to a stop. Sukingyu just stood up in the carriage and wanted to move her hands and feet. When she stopped, she almost fell out. After finally holding on, he heard a noise coming from outside. What happened? Sister-in-law, let's go quickly, don't bump into the noble man. Suyagui and Qiuju were so frightened that their legs went weak when they saw this huge, endless team, as well as the guards with swords and guns on both sides of the team. He grabbed Lucaya tightly, trying to pull her away. Please, noble man, please save my daughter. She is only 4 years old. Please, please save her. Sukingyu faintly heard the sound coming from the front in the carriage and sighed. I have encountered many people blocking the road like this along the way. This is still in Vietnam. In other places, I am afraid that more people will not be able to survive like this. Therefore, Si Yuan and others in front did not come to report to Sukingneo, so they planned to give them some food and some silver to let them leave. Please, please save my daughter. She is my husband's only flesh and blood in this world. If she dies, I won't be able to survive. Please. Lucaya was driven away by Si Yuan and others, but she didn't want to get up. She didn't want any money to eat. She knelt on the ground and didn't want to get up. Si Yuan and others saw her as pitiful and did not drag her away. This is a block in the middle of the road. You can't run over it, right? Miss Si Yuan walked to the carriage and told Sukingyu about the situation. Let Uncle Ling go over and take a look. Yes. There is no doctor in their team, so they always go to Ling Fenggu for any problems. Fortunately, they are just minor ailments, and Ling Fenggu can deal with them. Ling Fenggu went over and helped them to the roadside with Si Yuan and others. On the other side, Su Saiquan and others also rushed over, Cao Ya, Cao Ya. Thinking that Lu Cao Ya was being made things difficult for the nobles, she was very anxious. Grass sprout. Sukingyu was in a daze for a while. She remembered that year in Fengting town, when men were drafted into the army, she went to see them off. Su Yuan took her and told her that if Lucaya had any difficulties in the future, she must help. If he dies in the future and Lucaya has nowhere to go, please help her and find a way for her to survive. There is also Lucaya in Fengting town, her cousin-in-law, but I don't know how she is doing now. Dad sent so many letters back, but no news came back at all. I don't know if anyone is still there. Su Qingnao often saw her father sitting on the top of a high mountain, facing the direction of his hometown. Her father was homesick and missed his relatives in his hometown. Su Qingyu sighed. The team moved forward again. When Su Qingyu passed by, she couldn't help but lift the curtains of her car and look towards the roadside. When he saw it, he was suddenly stunned. Stop, stop. Su Qingyu hurriedly lifted the car curtain and jumped out. Third uncle, fourth uncle. Su Saiquan felt something in his heart. Although he thought it was unlikely, he still looked towards the sound. When he saw it, his eyes widened. Ching, ching ching. Everyone else also looked over. The third brother and the third sister-in-law are King Huo, King Huo, King Huo, King Huo. Third sister. In just a moment, a crowd of people surrounded Su Qingying. He pulled her, screaming and wiping tears. Su Qingyu looked at the family members surrounding her, her face full of confusion. Third uncle, third aunt, fourth uncle, why are you here? Family members I hadn't seen for several years suddenly appeared in the Southland, and why did they all look so miserable? Unkempt and disheveled, with barely any clothes on, he looked like a disciple of the beggar clan. Zheng and others were in a daze when they saw the well-dressed Su Qingyu appearing in front of them. Mrs. Zheng wanted to rush forward and cry out about the difficulties of going south, but she stopped when she saw that she was dressed in beggar's clothes. She had not washed herself for many days and was covered in dust. Qingnao, we have found you. He pulled Su Qingnao around her and wiped away her tears. The excitement of seeing hope when they were at the end of their rope struck their hearts. Su Qingyu comforted them and said, "Are you here to see us?" Looking at the family members surrounding her, although she had not spent much time with them in the past, they were all blood relatives. Moreover, Su Qingyu was a little excited to see her relatives in a foreign land. When Su Saiquan saw that the whole family was so excited that he couldn't even speak, he wiped away his tears. Said, "Yes, we received the letter from my eldest brother and sister-in-law. We were very happy and wanted to come to you. I wrote you a reply, but there was no reply from you. We have been waiting for a long time, and the family really can't survive anymore." A whole family came here. Su Qing'an was very surprised. "Ah, did you write back to us? Dad wrote many letters to you, but never received a reply. I kept thinking about you, worried that you were not in Kyoto village, worried about your situation, and couldn't sleep well at night. Ah. I told you that the man was untrustworthy, but you gave him 10 taels of silver every time to deliver letters. You saw that brother and sister-in-law didn't receive them at all. We can't find any other way to deliver letters. There's no one at the post station." Su Qing'an sighed after hearing this. The world is in chaos. We are far apart, one in the south and one in the north, and the transportation is inconvenient. Fortunately, we found her. Thinking of the quarrel just now, Su Qing'an didn't say much, so she asked, "Who is sick?" "It's Liwa. It's Liwa." Su Qing'an walked towards the crowd. "It's really Lucaya." Second sister-in-law. Lucaya was still sitting on the ground. When she saw Su Qing'an, she held Liwa in her arms and reached out to pull her, crying and saying, "Qing'an, I finally found you. Please go and see your niece. She is not happy anymore. She is the only flesh and blood of your second brother in the world. Please save her." She held Su Qing'an and cried with tears on her face. Su Qing'an couldn't help feeling sad and comforted her. "Don't worry, I'll ask someone to take a look." She squatted down and looked at Liwa. The little Liwa was born only a few days later than Xiaobao, but she looked much younger than Xiaobao. She didn't look like a 4-year-old child. At this time, her face was pale, her eyes were closed, and her breathing was weak. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 387. Su Qingyu's heart ached. After becoming a mother, Her heart softened and she couldn't bear to see her child suffer. 6. Uncle Ling, how are you? It's not a big deal. I'm probably too hungry. Feeding me some food should help me recover. But the child can't feed him anything right now. Ling Fenggu frowned. If you can't feed it, it won't get better. Su Qingyu thought for a while and asked Xi Yuan to bring some warm water and fine porridge. There were old people and children along the way, and warm water and fine porridge were always available in the car. Soon Xi Yuan brought something over. Miss, here it is. Su Qingyu took it and ordered, second sister-in-law, Qiuju, lift Liwa's head up and pinch her mouth open. The two of them quickly followed suit, and Su Qingyu slowly dripped warm water into Liwa's throat. Pour it and observe it. When you see that the water is not vomited out, you feel happy and drink more. I poured some warm water and then slowly poured some rice soup and porridge into her throat, but she didn't vomit it out. When everyone saw it, they were very happy. Seeing that her daughter could swallow things, Lucaya cried and laughed at the same time, wiping her tears. Qing Lao, will Liwa die? Su Qinjiao comforted her, if you can eat something, you will get better slowly. Because she met several people from the Su family, Su Qingyu ordered them to rest where they were and asked everyone to get out of the car and make something to eat before leaving. She took the Su family to learn about the situation. After hearing about the family's situation, Su Qingyu let out a long sigh, feeling very sad. In order to avoid the war, my grandfather and step-grandmother hid in the mountains with 2, 3 and 4 bedrooms without notifying the family. And she fled her hometown with her eldest family. She thought that staying at home would be much more stable than the difficulties and dangers they faced along the way, but she didn't expect that so many things had happened. Within just a few years, my grandfather and step-grandmother were gone. The second wife had the largest population, but her second uncle was gone and Su Yuan was killed in battle. The second daughter, Xia He, lost her husband and her son. She was kicked out by her husband's family and returned to her natal family. Now there is only one male left in the second room. The second aunt was afraid that Yowu would be drafted, so she took him to hide in Tibet. Now she is 18 years old and lives in fear. As for the 3-bedroom apartment, there is no wealth. In the 4th room, the woman married by the 4th uncle left her young daughter and ran away with others. God bless me, my Su family's fate should not have been cut off, but I met Ching Ching on the road. Otherwise, even if we arrive in Renzhou, we may not be able to find our eldest brother and sister-in-law. Seeing Mrs. Zheng and others eating big mouthfuls of food and drinking water, Su Qingyu felt sad and emotional at the same time. Third sister, this meat pie is so delicious. Su Yugui smiled shyly at Su Qingnao while stuffing the meat pie into his mouth. 10-year-old Su Yugui has skinny cheeks and cautious eyes. He no longer looks like the chubby little bully who competed with Qing Yang for food when he was a child. Eat slowly. Third sister will get it for you after you finish eating. Su Qingyu smiled at him. Thank you, third sister. I knew I would have something to eat if I found third sister. Fortunately, I persisted. A smile appeared on Yufu's face. You persevered, but it's a pity that your brother was not lucky enough to persevere. Thinking of Yufu who disappeared on the road, Mrs. Zheng wiped away tears. Su Sangzi felt heartbroken when she thought of her eldest son, so she patted her and comforted her a few words. Everyone fell silent as they thought of their departed relatives. The little girl Qingzhao took small bites of the meat pie and ate it, looking at this and that. She was very curious about the third sister she had never met before, and stared straight at her. Is your name Qingzhao? Come to third sister. Su Qingyu waved to the little girl. Qingzhao looked at her father, then at Qing Lao, and walked towards her with her calves. The little girl had round eyes and was skinny, but she looked very smart. She was not afraid of being pulled by Su Qingyu. She softly called third sister and sat down next to her. While biting the meat pie, he stared at Su Qingyu. King Zhao looks a lot like Qing Xin when I was a child. So King Nao looked at her and said with a smile to Su Saiquan. Yes, she looks very much like that girl Qing Xin. Su Saiquan looked at his daughter with a doting look on his face. He breathed a long sigh of relief. It would be great to find Qing Lao, otherwise he wouldn't know if the little girl could survive it if it took a little longer. If you are rich, you will not survive. For some reason, he just believed in this niece. Now that I saw that Qing Lao was not related to the family, my heart suddenly calmed down. Along the way, he was also afraid that his eldest brother's family would remember that his parents abandoned him and would not accept them. Fortunately, Qing Nao is indeed a generous person. When they saw their relatives in their hometown, Sudahua and Huabao also came over to say hello. Uncle Saiquan, have you seen my mother? Huabao felt worried when he saw that the prosperous Su family in Kyoto village had all moved south and could no longer survive. His mother was afraid that it would be difficult for her to live alone. Su Saiquan looked at Huabao, who was now living like a human being, and sighed in his heart, "We saw your mother in the village 2 years ago, but then many people in the village left, and most of the village was empty, and we never saw her again." Your mother? Huabao was very depressed after hearing this. He also wanted to wait for 2 years to settle down and take his mother to the south. Mrs. Zhang comforted him, "Don't worry, your mother has lived well by herself for so many years. Maybe she is still living well somewhere now. Yes, maybe she will come back to the village when life becomes more stable in the future." Huabao nodded, and could only comfort himself in this way. Feng Shi looked at Sudahu, who was following Su Qingyu. She saw that he was well dressed and neatly packed. He looked like he came from a wealthy family. She gritted her teeth. If she had escaped with Da Feng's family, would her man be the same? Won't die. After everyone had eaten, Su Qingyu ordered to set off. Cars were arranged for the Su family. The Su family was full of questions. They wondered where Su Qingyu came from and why she brought so many people with her. Moreover, they all respected her and listened to her in everything. My heart was pounding, and I was endlessly curious. But it's hard to ask, for fear of arousing her resentment. If she doesn't take them in, there will really be no place to go. Dozens of people in the woods who had escaped from the Northland panicked when they saw the team moving, so they packed up their things and followed them. Regardless of whether he was heading towards Renzhou before, he was following closely behind the team at this time. "Miss, everyone in the forest is following you." After hearing this, Su Qingyu waved her hand, "I ordered you to pay attention. As long as they don't harass or attack, just ignore them." Yes. Dozens of people who had escaped from the disaster in the forest saw Su Qingyu ordering people to cook in the stove. They looked at it from a distance while sucking saliva. Although their stomachs rumbled, they did not rush forward to grab food. Su Qingyu ordered people to send them some food. I didn't care anymore. They are all a group of poor people. Now that she has enough energy, she will not be stingy with some food. Su Qingyu put Liwa in her car and kept pouring warm water and rice soup into her throat. By the next day, she would be able to swallow it by herself. The eyes are also opened. As soon as she opened her mouth and called her mother, Lucaya shed tears. Holding her was like holding a lost and found treasure, and she cried so hard that Su Qingyu felt unbearable. In the other car, Su Yawu and Xiaohe also breathed a sigh of relief when they learned that Liwa had woken up. "Mom, please be nicer to my sister-in-law and Liwa in the future. My brother is gone, but she will never leave her. She is willing to raise Liwa at home and not marry another person. It is very rare. Dad and brother are gone, what does Liwa have to do with her? Her child is only a few years old." "Yes, Mother, my eldest aunt likes my sister-in-law very much. Don't make my eldest aunt unhappy. Then our family will really have no place to go." After listening to the words of the two children around her, Feng gritted her teeth and remained silent. The two siblings looked at each other and sighed secretly. Dad's death was a huge blow to my mother, and my mother suddenly overcame the pain. It has also changed. At the foot of the Green Mountain, Sudahai led his family to watch at the mountain pass. Qinglao came back and asked Si Yuan to come back and report that he met the second brother, third brother, fourth brother, and 3 families on the way, and they were looking for him. Sudahai was so happy that he had nowhere to put his hands and feet. He couldn't stay in the village and ran to the mountain pass to welcome people. Now he can't go back to Kyoto village, but his brothers have come to join him with their families. The family was reunited in Southland. Sudahai rubbed his hands anxiously. Why haven't you come yet? Is this going too slowly? Mother Su couldn't bear to see him like this. Don't stretch your head and tiptoe for a while. Qinglao is leading so many people, how can we walk fast? There are old people and young people, so don't walk slowly. Sudahai calmed down a little after his wife told him. Dad, are you so looking forward to them coming? In the past, at home, they always refused to deal with us and always bullied Mom. Qingxing felt quite complicated. Now her family was peaceful and quiet in the mountains, and everything was fine. But when they came, there would be chaos. Don't talk nonsense, Sudahai scolded Qingxing. No matter what, they are his relatives, and their teeth still touch his lips. Not to mention blood relatives. They thought highly of him as their elder brother, so they brought their whole family to join him. Xiaobao looked at this and that, then walked over and took Su's mother's hand. Grandma, don't be afraid. If someone bullies you, Xiaobao will help you beat him up. Xiaobao can punch and kick now, who dares to bully Grandma? Xiaobao will help Grandma teach him a lesson. Dabao also went over and took his younger brother's hand, looking up at Su's mother. Grandma, Dabao will help too. Oh, Grandma's sweet grandson. Su's mother couldn't help being happy. She knelt down, hugged the 2 brothers and rubbed them. As expected, he will be kissed by whoever raised him. Look at her grandchildren, they are sensible. After saying that this child was sensible, Xiaobao ran to the road, stood on tiptoe and looked at the road ahead. Why isn't Mother here? I miss Mother so much. I miss my mother too. Dabao also ran over, holding his brother's hand and looking towards the road. After a while, the sound of wheels finally came from the road. It's my mother, it must be my mother. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 388. Back in the village, Su Qingnao handed over several rooms of the Su family to Su's father and mother Su, while she took her 2 sons who clung to her to settle hundreds of family members. Read. They had written letters back to the village a long time ago, so Wei Fuking and Xiangshang took their people to build a house on the other 2 hills of Xinjianzai early. With houses of civil structure and the large manpower of the joint village, dozens or hundreds of houses can be built. It looks very spectacular. Originally, there were only a few of our families in this mountain. Even if we arranged for people to come over later, there were not many people. Now it's better and it's quite lively. Brother Zhengbo went out with Su Qingyu and gained a lot of knowledge. Now I see that hundreds of family members have been arranged to live with them, and they are popular and lively, and I feel even more happy. Hundreds of family members entered the mountain. When they saw the nice houses, the tall village gates, and the strict guards, the uneasiness in their hearts quickly dissipated, and they all had smiles on their faces. Dabao and Xiaobao followed Su Qingyu to the left and right, unable to drive them away. Holding Su Qingyu's hand, she looked at the many older and younger children in the team, staring intently at them. Mom, why are there so many children? Xiaobao shook Su Qingyu's hand, curious. Don't you like it, little treasure? They will live with us in the mountains from now on. Dabeo and Little Treasure can come over and play with them. Okay, Xiaobao jumped excitedly. Dabeo was very steady and held Sukingyu's hand. Although he was curious in his heart, he was not as jumpy as his younger brother. Mom, are they all people who escaped from the north? No, they are the families of your father's soldiers. Are they the family members of the soldiers? Yes. After listening to Sukingyu's words, Dabeo suddenly stood in awe of them. Xiaobao, on the other hand, hugged her legs and asked her with twinkling eyes, Mom, have you met Daddy, right? Isn't my daddy majestic? Before Sukingyu could answer, she said to herself, my father is so awesome. He picked up Xiaobao with one hand. He also threw Xiaobao high, higher than anyone else. Dad is also good at boxing, swordsmanship, and horseback riding. He takes Xiaobao on a horseback, and the wind blows so hard that Xiaobao can't even open his eyes. It's so fast. Sukingneo couldn't help but smile. Does Xiaobao miss Daddy? Yes. I miss Daddy so much. Mom, when can Daddy come back and live with us? Mom doesn't know either. Xiaobao studies hard and will be able to write a lot of words in the future. Then he can write a letter and ask Daddy by himself, okay. Okay. I can write a lot of words now. Xiaobao has not forgotten the words Grandpa Ma taught me. If you don't believe me, ask your brother. Dabeo looked at Sukingyu and nodded, well, Grandpa Ma said that my younger brother has a good memory. He remembers all the words he has learned. Sukingyu looked at Xiaobao again and saw his little face raised, looking proud. Sukingyu praised him and scratched his nose, don't be proud. I'm not proud. Right, brother. Well, my brother is not proud. After hearing what his brother said, Xiaobao pursed his lips proudly and looked at Sukingneo, who glared at him. Seeing that the two brothers were getting along well, Sukingyu felt relieved. After thinking about it, he asked Dabeo, does Dabeo like this dad? Dabeo looked at her and nodded, I like it. This dad can hold Dabeo, teach Dabeo martial arts, and take Dabeo to ride horses. Dabeo likes this dad. Xiaobao also likes this daddy. Do you still want to like other dads? Sukinjeo couldn't laugh or cry, so she hit him on the head, causing Xiaobao to protest. It took an afternoon for Sukingneo to arrange the hundreds of family members, and then brought rice, noodles, and vegetables from the main village of Xinjianzai and distributed them to each family. They originally had pots and pans, and the stoves were built so they could cook on them. In addition to the soft furnishings, the house is also fully equipped with beds, cabinets, tables, chairs, and other daily large items. It is well decorated and you can move in with just your bags. Sukingyu has studied the personnel files of hundreds of family members, and she knows them quite well. These people had previously looked up to Gu Changqing, and the female relatives also looked up to Gu Changqing's wife, Kui, and Gu Changqing's mother, Ren. So Sukingyu told her and her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law to continue to be in charge of these family members, and asked Lu Zhong's wife Qi and her daughter Yuanyang to assist. Lu Yuanyang was 17 years old and was already married to Gu Changqing's personal attendant Pei Yan. Two families merge into one. Lu Yuanyang seemed to be a dignified and generous person, and she also recognized a lot of words from Lu Zhong. She was a standard Xiajiabiu. Fortunately, she has a cheerful personality, and like her mother Qi, she is not an introvert. There should be no problem if hundreds of family members are left to these four people. If there is any undecided matter, wouldn't she still be there? Aunt Gu, are you satisfied with the house? If there is anything that is not thoughtful, feel free to mention it and we will improve it in the future. Gu Changqing's wife, Gu Renqi, was in her 50s and looked very tough. After getting along with her, Sukingyu found that she was a very open-minded and sensible old lady, and she respected her very much. After hearing what Sukingneo said, Ms. Gu held her hand and kept praising her, it's very good. There's nothing to be dissatisfied about. I do everything with my heart. Just look at the gate and sentry post at the entrance of the village, and we can sleep peacefully. Don't worry now, someone will attack the mountain in the middle of the night. Now you are the general's wife. If you have anything to do, just tell us to do it. Sukingyu smiled and said, as long as you are satisfied. Then you get used to it for a few days. After 2 days, I will divide the fields for everyone. The market town is not far from here, only an hour's walk away. You can go there for a stroll. Some of these people, anyone who has run a small business in his hometown, can go and have a look. If he wants to open a shop or do something, I welcome him. In fact, all the family members had heard Sukingyu talk about the situation in the mountains as early as on the rooftop. The situation is also roughly understood. Before coming here, I had thought about making a living. They all ask Sukingyu. If there are no adult men in the family, and those who cannot do the work in the fields, they can work in several workshops, and they will usually get a salary. Before Lu Bachan left, he discussed with Sukingneo that half of the soldiers' military pay would be distributed to their families by Sukingneo to arrange their lives. In the future, if soldiers are killed in battle, Sukingyu will also pay them pensions and arrange their future lives. If you want to start a small business, there are also market towns where you can open a shop. So everyone has nothing to worry about. Once in the mountains, life will not be unbearable. But if you want to live a good life, you have to work harder. Fortunately, there are abundant products in the mountains. I can save some money by picking up some mountain products and selling them. Sukingyu will also have a lot of jobs that need people. As long as you are not lazy, you will survive. Thank you, madam. Once we have arranged our home, I will take them and madam to get work. Okay. Then Aunt Gu and Sister Kui will take care of me more. If anything happens, send someone to find me. Okay. Madam, don't worry, Kui Zanyang responded with a smile. He turned around to find the 2 children. I saw the madam's 2 sons, playing with their 2 sisters and brothers for unknown reasons. The 4 of them were happily laughing, and they laughed from time to time. Kui Zanyang looked at the vast green mountains and smiled. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 389. Miss, everyone is settled. Reading. Si Yuan came over to report. Si Yuan was sent by Sukingyu to arrange 200 soldiers. They wanted to transport grain and weapons to the north. While they were there, Sukingyu planned to ask them to help with some work in the iron shop, otherwise he might not be able to make so many weapons and transport them to Lu Bachan. Sukingyu listened to their report and nodded, come here every day and keep an eye on them. If they have any needs, try to satisfy them. Yes. Hundreds of family members and 200 soldiers were settled, and Sukingyu called her 2 sons who were having fun with their younger brothers and sisters to go home. Mom, brother Siryui and sister Scarlet are so fun. Xiaobao held her hand and looked back every 3 steps. Call them Siryui and Scarlet. After asking, Sukingyu glanced at Si Yuan and laughed, why does it seem to be from your family? Si Yuan also laughed after hearing this. At first glance, I really thought they were from the same family. Hey, yes, it looks like the name of Uncle Si Yuan. Xiaobao raised his head and looked at the 2 of them. Si Yuan picked up Xiaobao and said, really? It looks different from Uncle. Xiaobao couldn't hear the joke, so he looked at the 2 of them very carefully and shook his head. No, brother Siryui and sister Scarlet are cuter than you. Several people laughed when they listened to his serious words. The group of people walked to the main village of Xinjianzai. Sukingyu asked Si Yuan, is your marriage to Ruyi going to be held this year? Have you chosen a date? Si Yuan's face turned red all of a sudden, and his face turned red after being teased by Si Yuan about the rabbit eating grass beside the nest. He lowered his head and replied, I have discussed it with Aunt Lu and we will do it after the autumn harvest when we are not busy. Before Su Qingyu could speak, Xiaobao had already understood and clapped his little hands excitedly. Okay, okay. I'll have some wedding candy. Si Yuan almost threw him away in shame. Okay, if there's anything you need me to do, just ask. Yes. Su Qingyu successfully settled hundreds of family members here, but when Su's father settled a few people in the Su family, it was not smooth. Seeing his younger brothers and family members, Su's father was excited and happy. He kept chattering to them about the various events after the farewell. I even cried when I heard that my father and stepmother were no longer here. He kowtowed 3 times in the direction of his hometown before being helped up by everyone. Mother Su looked at the people in these rooms, who were in a state of desolation. The unhappiness she had with them over trivial matters also dissipated. Brother, I finally found you. Our journey has been too difficult. If you are rich and can't hold on, he won't be lucky enough to find his uncle. Mrs. Zheng entered the fortified village and sat in the spacious and bright room. There was another table full of food on the table. Then she saw that everyone in the eldest brother's room was wearing fine cloth. Then she thought about the hardships they had along the way. Thinking about Yufu who didn't survive on the road, Zheng shed tears again. You rich, poor kid. Su's father and Su's mother also wiped away tears when they thought of being rich. I originally thought that my brothers were in their hometown and would not suffer the hardships of wandering. Unexpectedly, they were in such a state of desolation that they didn't even have food to eat on the road. I almost couldn't make it to Renzo. The family also saved some money in the early years, and once the family left, all the fields in the family should have been sold to get some money. How could there be no food? She almost starved Liwa to death. Mother Su looked at the little pear blossom and felt heartbroken. We were not at peace hiding in the mountains. From time to time, officials came to patrol the mountains. My parents couldn't get used to it, and they often had to get up in the middle of the night to run away, and our bodies gradually became unable to hold on. Later, the officials arrested many people in the mountains. The second brother was also captured by them. A bunch of people went up to rob him, and my parents followed suit. Many people were beaten to death on the spot. The second brother left after being carried back for a few days. After the second brother was gone, my parents didn't suffer for long, and they also disappeared. The village is empty. No one dares to stay in the village, and no one is planting in the fields. They quietly grow some vegetables. Before they grow up, someone comes to steal them in the middle of the night. I almost thought I couldn't live anymore. Then I received a letter from my eldest brother. The family was very happy. We wanted to go to him, but we didn't expect that the reply we sent to him was not delivered to him. The man even lied to us. Silver. Later, we couldn't wait for the letter from my eldest brother, so we decided to set off south to find you. Our house and fields were sold and no one wanted it, so we only took the money we had saved over the years with us, which was all spent along the way. Every time we pass through a city, we have to pay entrance fee. We almost thought we would never see Big Brother again. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan shed tears while talking. Su's father, Su's mother, Qingyang Qingxing, and others also wiped away their tears. I don't know whether I should blame my family for abandoning their eldest family, or I should be grateful that they abandoned their family. The heads of the third and fourth bedrooms of the big house were all there, but the head of the second house was gone. Ms. Feng started crying again. One moment she cried that Su Erhe's life was suffering, and the other moment she cried that her own life was suffering. She howled so loudly that she woke up Ning Ning, who was sleeping in the room and couldn't stop crying. Su Qingliu hurriedly ran into the house to comfort her son. Yaya also wanted to run to see her brother, but when the adults talked, the children gathered together on their own. She took a look and saw 2 children sitting on the left and right, one named Liwa and the other King Zhao. The older one's mother said she was her cousin, and the younger one's mother said she wanted to call her aunt. Such a young aunt? Even younger than her aunt. Yaya glanced at Ching Xing and saw that Ching Xing was listening to the adults and not paying attention to them. The two children were unattended, so she sat down again. If the younger brother is coaxed by his mother, he will behave well. Then he quietly asked the two children, "What else do you want to eat? I'll get it for you." Liwa and King Zhao both looked up at her, licked their lips, glanced at the adults, turned back and whispered to Yaya, "I want to eat dried meat." "Okay, then you just wait and I'll get it for you." After Yaya finished speaking, she got off the stool, picked up an empty plate, and ran out. Ms. Feng had been persuaded by everyone. When she saw a little girl running out, she was white, plump and well dressed. After asking, she found out that she was King Liu's girl. I felt sour again for a while. I didn't expect that King Liu's man died, but now he is getting better and better. The man he remarried looks better than his previous son-in-law Zhou, and now he has a son by his side. He has really fallen into a honeypot. Look at our Xiaohe, man, my son also died, and I was kicked out by my husband's family. It's a really hard life. When Xiaohe saw that her mother had brought the topic to her, her head immediately dropped and she tightly twisted the corners of her clothes with both hands. She is an unknown person. Will her uncle and aunt drive her away? Where could she go? For a moment, my eyes felt sour and astringent. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 390. Mother Su frowned when she saw that Feng was not listening. Read. But when I think about the fact that her husband is gone and her eldest son is gone too, she used to be the best person in the family, but now that she looks like she is more than 10 years older than her, I can't help but feel sympathy for her. He didn't say anything. Seeing Xiaohe lowering his head in sadness and uneasiness, he said to her warmly, "Xiaohe, don't worry about that, people live their lives. Don't you see that your sister King Liu also lives her life well? She still has it with her. Yaya is a loser. As long as you work hard, you can live a good life. There are many bachelors in the mountains, and you are good looking. If you want to marry, there are many men in the mountains for you to choose." Seeing that her eldest aunt didn't dislike her, Xiaohe breathed a sigh of relief, raised his head and smiled at her. When Ms. Zheng heard what Su's mother said, she pushed Qiuju and said, "Sister-in-law, don't forget about our Qiuju. This girl followed us and hid here and there, and she was also delayed." Before Su's mother had time to speak, Ms. Feng also pushed Su Youwu. "We have Youwu, who is now 18. We have nowhere to go. This is the only thing left in my second room. He is gone, and I am homeless again. For the sake of he, if you are capable, elder brother and sister-in-law, give this kid a hand, I will kowtow to you." As he said this, he really wanted to kneel down to Father Su and Mother Su. Sudahai and his wife were so panicked that they hurried over to help her. "No matter what my brothers and sisters said, we are all a family that has broken bones and connected tendons. As an uncle, how can I ignore my nephews and nieces? Don't worry, as long as I have something to eat, you will be safe. I won't let you go hungry. Thank you, brother and sister-in-law. Thank you, uncle and aunt." Speaking of several children, Mother Su asked, "Where is Chunlin?" Chunlin fled with her husband's family to who knows where. She didn't even leave a message. Speaking of her eldest daughter, Feng wiped away tears again. The family is dying, there is no news, and now the number of people in the second house has been reduced. Don't worry, maybe the world will get better in the future and we can see each other. Su's mother comforted her. I had no intention of making Ms. Feng sad by talking about her second wife. Mother Su looked at Yagui and laughed when she saw that he was sitting quietly and listening to the adults talking. "Yagui, this child looks like he has grown up a lot, like a little adult." Mrs. Zheng glanced at her son and couldn't help but think of being rich again, but she didn't want to make her elder brother and sister-in-law sad. Then he said with a smile, "He has been hiding with us over the years and has learned a lot." I glanced at Qing Yang and saw that he now looked like a young master from a wealthy family. He was polite, and I was a little envious. Said, "Qing Yang is only 1 year older than us Yagui. When he was a child, he looked thinner than Yagui, but now compared with Qing Yang, Yagui is a lot shorter, and he still looks like Qin Jiang's lackey." He laughed as he spoke. Qing Xing also glanced at Yagui. "When I was a child, I was chubby and would always fight for food with my brothers and sisters. I was overbearing and unreasonable, which was very annoying. Why have you become so showy now?" Mother Su looked at her son, feeling quite proud. Said, "He studied in the town for 2 years, and now he is practicing martial arts with his master. He has grown taller quickly." Qing Lao also found cow and goat milk for several children in the family to drink. They looked taller than other children of the same age. Yagui glanced at Qing Yang and lowered his head. I was very envious. Mom was right, now compared with him, he was like his follower. He originally wanted to study in the town, but his family wouldn't let him. Yagui twitched his fingers. But Zheng and others looked at the behavior of Dafang's family, feeling envious and happy at the same time. Fortunately, there was no big conflict with the eldest brother before, and the eldest brother also had family members like them in his heart. Otherwise, if he had enmity before, it would be really difficult for him to defect to him. Dafang's family seems to be really getting up now, with food, drink, clothing, and abundance everywhere. This young prostitute seemed to have become a different person after she got married. She opened a shop in the town, earned a lot of money, and supported her family. Now she has escaped to the south and is living a peaceful life. People in the mountains don't listen to her. Now she has become the princess of the Yu kingdom. Brother and sister-in-law, why did Qing Yu become the princess? Su's father and Su's mother also just knew the news, and said, "We also just found out. The king of Yu recognized her as his goddaughter before, and we don't know why the king of Yu granted her a title. This king of Yu. Why did she adopt a non-blood relative as her daughter for no reason, and then she was granted a seal of approval? This king of Yu is the master Ma who opened the martial arts school in our Fengting town before. He is the master of his son-in-law." Later, in the Southland, Qing Nao met him again. Maybe he remembered the things he brought to Qing Nao when they left. "If you don't have any trouble, just accept Qing Nao as your daughter. This is really unexpected. Master Ma, who opened a martial arts gym in the town, actually became the king of Yu. Yes, who would have thought of this? We didn't expect our eldest family to settle in the mountains to the south," Sudahai said with emotion. "Yeah, who would have thought? Our whole family left Kyoto village and came here to join my elder brother and sister-in-law in the south. They are all very emotional." The family said many goodbyes. When I first saw my relatives, I felt happy and excited. But when it came to allocating houses, Ms. Feng was not happy. She started crying. "We originally came to join the big brothers and sisters, but now you want to assign us to another place. This is because you dislike us. Brother and sister-in-law don't mean this." Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan hurriedly stepped forward to persuade him. "Mom, my uncle doesn't dislike us." Su Yowu also pulled her. Sudahai felt a little at a loss when he saw his sister-in-law crying. "When we received a letter from Qing Nao before, we only said that we would build a house on the mountain next door to accommodate the families of the soldiers. Her mother and I didn't know you were coming. There is no house in the main village, and the house can't accommodate such a house. There are so many people. Yes, it's on the top of the mountain next door. As my brother said, it's only half an hour's walk away. It's not far from my place. Feng couldn't listen and thought that her eldest brother and sister-in-law wanted to get rid of them and disliked them as a burden. Mom, it's because there is no room here, so my uncle arranged this. Feng didn't listen. That Sudahu lives at home, how come he doesn't have a house? He can live with an outsider, so why can't our family be better than an outsider? We came all the way here just to live with our elder brothers and sisters-in-law. Come closer, the whole family is so close, why did you just come here and send us to another place? Don't you just dislike us? Mother Su was a little unhappy after hearing this. Although Sudahu had no blood relationship with them, he escaped from home with them and shared will and woe along the way, just like his own children. Ching Xing also frowned. Why did this second aunt change like this? She often wiped away tears and said that her life was miserable. She was not like this before. Why did her parents dislike her? After hearing her words, Su's father wanted to make a few excuses. When he saw his younger brother and his children coming to seek refuge with him, he was too happy to do so, so how could he dislike them? Just as he was about to speak, Qing Yang pulled him back. Dad, ask my sister when she comes back. When Su's father heard this, he nodded quickly. Yes, wait until King Glao comes back and ask her to see how she arranges it. I also want you to live closer to us, but now there are no houses in the main village, so you can live on the hill next door first. I will let you move back when a house is built here, that's what I mean. Zheng, Su Sangzi, Su Saiquan and others nodded understandingly. We listen to eldest brother. When Qing now comes back later, we will ask her. Everyone in this mountain listens to Qing now, and we also listen to her. Feng didn't say anything after hearing this. Of course she wanted Sudahai to make the decision to let them live at home instead of listening to Qing now. The eldest brother is much easier to talk to than Qing now. But now that everyone has said so, it's hard for her to speak again. After a while, I heard Xiaobeo's chirping voice outside. Su Qingyu came back with her two sons. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 391. Dabao and Xiaobao entered the house and called people one by one. Seeing that the two children were sensible and cute, everyone couldn't help teasing them. Dabao and Xiaobao are used to being praised by others. They are also generous and not timid at all. They answer questions about this and that from time to time. They look very clever. Everyone praised Su Qingyu for raising her two sons well. Feng looked directly at Dabao and suddenly felt relieved. A bastard with no blood relationship, the young concubines have raised him like a young master. Look at the way he dresses, the clothes on his head, the body, and the shoes on his feet, which are also embroidered with flowers. At first glance, it seems that it has been carefully raised. So how can Qing treat these blood relatives poorly? Now that she has an identity, she can't do anything shameful. Mrs. Feng put away her uneasiness and sat on the chair. Soon it was time to eat. Su's father was very happy when he saw several younger brothers and their children coming to him. After calling several women in the village to help, Lu and others worked in the kitchen for a long time, preparing a large table full of dishes. There are few vegetables and all are hard vegetables. There is no shortage of vegetables or meat in the mountains. Mountain products that are not available outside are eaten every meal in the mountains. However, there is a shortage of fish, shrimps, and aquatic products in the mountains. Not only in the mountains, but also outside, there is a shortage. There is not much aquaculture happening these days. If you want to eat a piece of fish or a plate of shrimp, you have to catch it freshly. Sometimes you can catch it, but more often it depends on luck. But there were a lot of fish and shrimps on the table today, which made the children who were usually tired of eating wild products couldn't help but drool. Su Qingyu looked at the dishes on the table, and it seemed that her parents had put a lot of thought into this wedding banquet. Looking at the people who entered the village today, both adults and children were drooling over the table of food. The adults were more restrained, staring but keeping their mouths tightly pursed. But the sound of the child swallowing saliva was heard very clearly. Su Sangzi felt all kinds of emotions in her heart. It seemed that the people in the eldest brother's house had really improved their lives. Looking at the food on this table, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to buy it if I didn't have a few taels of silver in the restaurant in Fengting Town. Sit down, sit down, sit down. You've been so hungry all the way. Let's eat with open stomachs. This is our own home, so we don't need to be polite to my eldest brother. After saying that, he went to greet the children at the table next to him. Eat all of them. If you don't have enough, tell your uncle and he will ask the kitchen to cook. Thank you uncle and thank you grandpa. Several children thanked them and picked up their chopsticks one after another. Dabao and Xiaobao just picked up the chopsticks, and saw that the older and younger children at the same table were already using their chopsticks like flying shadows. In the blink of an eye, the meat was put into their mouths. When they looked again, their chopsticks had already taken the second chopstick and the third chopstick. Dabao was stunned while holding his chopsticks. He had never eaten with so many children before, and had never seen such a scene. Xiaobao was stunned for a moment, then not to be outdone, he also picked up the chopsticks to pick up the meat, then put it into his mouth with a squeal and chewed it hard. While chewing, he glanced around at the children on the table, and from time to time he imitated their example and quickly put rice into his mouth. Xiaobao, eat slowly, don't choke. Seeing that he wanted to imitate others to stand up and pick up food, Qingxin quickly put a chopstick into his bowl and gave him a warning. Okay, aunt. Seeing that he agreed obediently, Qingxin looked at Dabao again. Dabao will eat too. Good. Dabao wasn't too interested in the meat that Yagui and the others frequently used. He took a piece of fish and put it into his own bowl. He picked out the fish bones carefully and put it into his brother's bowl. Thank you Guo Guo. Xiaobao tilted his head and smiled sweetly at Dabao with a bulging mouth and slurred speech. Dabao taught him a lesson: swallow the food before you speak. Xiaobao's cheeks moved quickly and he nodded his head towards him. Dabao was satisfied. He picked up another chopstick of shrimp and gave it to his brother and himself, and then started eating slowly. Liwa looked at her two brothers, resisted the urge to grab the food, and started chewing slowly. With so many dishes, Liwa will definitely be able to eat enough, so she can't grab them. This is at Grandpa's house, and Liwa needs to be sensible and not annoying. And the youngest Qingzhao was very happy. There were so many people eating together, so many dishes, all delicious. Qingzhao liked to eat them all. Although she is only 3 years old, she has already served her meals by herself, but her hands are too short to pick up the food. Qiuju and Xiaohe sit next to her and help her pick up chopsticks from time to time. Xiaohe was unwilling to sit at the same table as Qingnao and the others. She had to take care of several children, so Su Qingnao had no choice but to let her go. Usually there are only 3 children at home for dinner, but there were so many here all of a sudden, including 2 younger sisters. Xiaobao was very excited. Although my mother said that the youngest one is not a sister and should be called aunt, but since he has an aunt, he will not call her aunt. Sister, why don't you eat fish and shrimp? They are delicious, and we don't get to eat them usually. Mom said you will be smart if you eat too much fish. As soon as Xiaobao called his sister, Liwa and King Zhao both looked at him. Although the little King Zhao is a little confused, shouldn't he call himself aunt like Liwa? But she didn't hesitate and said softly, the meat is delicious. Liwa also nodded, yes, the meat is delicious. Fish have spines, and shrimps are also shells. Seeing that Xiaobao still wanted to speak, Qingxing gave him a pair of chopsticks to pick up the fish bones. Xiaobao, eat well and play together when you are full. Then he gave Liwa and King Zhao a piece of meat each and said, Liwa and King Zhao can eat whatever they like. We'll make whatever they want for next meal. Okay, thank you, auntie. Thank you, sixth sister. When Qing Zhao called her this, Qingxing didn't react. She was stunned for a moment and then said, Qing Zhao is so good, you can even eat it by yourself. Tell sixth sister what you want to eat. Good. Su Saiquan was sitting at the men's table. Occasionally he looked up at his little daughter. She was relieved to see that all the sisters in the family were taking care of her. She also ate with a greasy mouth. Lu Kaya, who was sitting at the next table, kept his eyes on her daughter. She didn't give Yu Wenzhong a handle, so his bloodline was cut off, and she couldn't hold her head up at home. Mother and daughter have a very low sense of presence at home. Liwa can only walk, so she takes care of the housework. Even before the stove is high, she can sit on the stove and help her light the fire, and hand her things in the kitchen. It's too late. Usually when it comes to the dinner table, she eats whatever her mother-in-law arranges. Liwa often doesn't have enough to eat and she grows thin and small. She thought that Liwa would not be able to survive this journey south. Unexpectedly, when he met Qing Now, the child came back to life. Now there is a large table of food on the table, and no one is sharing it. Everyone takes what they want to eat. She was pulled to sit at the women's table, worried that her children would not be able to eat, and she glanced at it from time to time. Unexpectedly, Liwa was well taken care of by Qingxing and others, and no one grabbed her at the table. Liwa didn't dare to pick up vegetables at first, but then she let go and even dared to pick up meat for herself. Cao ya, come here, eat this meat. It's fresh. It was delivered from the market town this morning. There is also this bacon. Eat it and see if it tastes good. Mother Su saw that she only ate the vegetables in front of her, so she put vegetables into Lu Kaya's bowl. After a while, her bowl was piled up like a mountain. Lu Kaya blinked her eyes twice and smiled sincerely at Mother Su. Thank you, auntie. The meat is delicious. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 392. The women and children left the table quickly after eating. At the men's table, Sudahai took several brothers and nephews to drink and chat together. Read. Wei Fukang and Sudahu were both there, toasting from time to time. Everyone ate with a smile on their face. The children had already left the table after eating and ran outside to play in the yard. Sister, let's eat this for you. My grandma and Grandma Lu made it. It's delicious. Candy made from cow's milk and sheep's milk. It's delicious for you to eat. Xiaobao took out candies from his small satchel and gave them to Liwa and King Zhao. The two sisters were thin and small, their clothes were torn, their shoes were torn, and they didn't even have a headband. They were so pitiful. They must have never eaten sweets. Xiaobao was filled with sympathy and kept taking out the snacks in his small satchel. Soon the little hands of pear blossoms and green dates were full. Although I was full and my stomach was full, this candy was so delicious that I couldn't help but open another one and throw it into my mouth. Third sister said you want to call me Aunt. King Zhao corrected Xiaobao while holding the candy in his mouth. Xiaobao was still wondering who her third sister was and who her sixth sister was, and her little head didn't turn around. But she still understood when I called her aunt. He glanced at King Zhao, walked up to her again, and compared her height. She was much inferior to him. It's my sister. No, I have an aunt. Dad said that I am of higher rank, and even Liwa calls me aunt. Liwa's mouth was bulging, she squeezed the candy in her hand tightly, and nodded to Xiaobao, it's my aunt. Xiaobao refused to call, that's my sister. She is shorter than me, why should she be called aunt? Don't bark. Dabeo couldn't scream, so he looked at his younger brother and coaxed King Zhao, although you are older, you are still young. If you disturb others, they will be ignored. How about we call you by your name? The little King Zhao couldn't turn his head around, so he nodded, okay, just call me by name, not sister. Okay, King Zhao. King Zhao. The word sister was not spoken, and Xiaobao swallowed it back. After the children stopped worrying about their names, they happily played at the entrance of the courtyard. It's great, Ning Ning is the younger brother, and the uncle's son Teng Teng is also the younger brother. Now we finally have a younger sister in the family. It wasn't until the moon was at its zenith that the man had had enough wine and had finished talking about his farewell, and finally got off the table. Su Qingyu also listened to Su's mother and others talk about the issue of accommodation allocation just now. Su Qingyu expressed his understanding that several people wanted to live in the main village of Xinjianzai. She could take in a bunch of servants from the main village and build them new houses. There was no reason why she couldn't tolerate a group of blood relatives and wanted to drive them to other mountains. There is no need to leave this kind of talk to others. After discussing with Sudahu Wei Fukain, he said to the people in the several houses, there are indeed no empty houses in the village. Now the people in the several houses have been separated and live their own lives. It is not easy to crowd into one group. Now the family there is no room for you, so I will arrange for you to live temporarily with Dahu and his brother-in-law, and then I will arrange for you to live there when a house is built in the main village. Let Sudahu, Si Yuan, and Lu's mother and daughter live at home, while let your own family live outside. Feng was dissatisfied. Living in someone else's house is not as comfortable as living in a big brother's house. You don't have to do anything, you can eat and drink, and you don't even have to use your hands, just your words will be done by the servants. She has already seen that the furniture, decoration, and everything in her eldest brother's house are valuable, so she doesn't want them to live here. Feng felt sour in her heart and said, then we can't live together with so many people. We have slept on the road and in the wild, but we can't sleep anywhere. Now that the weather is warm, there are beddings in the house, so we can sleep anywhere. Zheng said something. She will have to rely on Da Feng's family in the future, and she doesn't want to imitate Feng and make others dislike her. That's right, mother, the men can sleep in the same room, and we women can sleep in the same room. He glanced at Su Qingyu and also persuaded Feng. Su Qingyu glanced at everyone, and then said, the women will live with my brother-in-law with their children, and the men will live with Dahu. If you feel that you can't live there, you can go to the hill next door and move around for a while. How many rooms can be freed up? No, that's good. Living close to you makes us feel at ease. I was so scared along the way that I didn't even dare to sleep on the road. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan agreed. Su Qingyu said something, but Su's father and mother did not dare to have any objections. That was how it was settled. Wei Fukain's house was vacated, and he and Su Qingyu moved back to their parents' home with their children. After several people left, the family was left sitting together talking. Su's father discussed with Su Qingyu how to build a house for them. Su's father looked at Su Qingyu and said, your uncles are brothers with me. Now that they have defected here, there is no one closer than them. Let them live in the same village with us. We can also take care of each other. Your second uncle is gone, and so is Wen. Although your second aunt's words are unpleasant, she doesn't have any bad intentions. She is just afraid of poverty. Seeing Su's father speaking cautiously, Su Qingyu wondered if she had spoken too harshly. Then he said, okay, Dad, you and my brother-in-law will be burdened. Find more people to help them build a few houses as soon as possible, and each room will have a small courtyard. We have separated our families, so we can just live our lives separately. Okay, Dad will find someone tomorrow. Su's father was very happy when he saw that Su Qing had agreed. He rubbed his hands and wished he could find someone now. Mother Su rolled her eyes at him, looking at you just now, you can't wait to free up the house you live in for them. Sue's father looked at Sue's mother, then at the children, and defended, I didn't. I just saw them suffering all the way, and felt sorry for them. We are all blood relatives. Seeing that the children were looking at him without saying a word, he said, Dad knows it. Now the families are divided and everyone lives their own lives. Dad has a sense of propriety. Where is that house? Sue's mother asked him. Get up, where are you? Father Su muttered, then looked at Su Qingyu. If the people in these rooms are far apart, but if they are close, there will be a lot of things. Su Qingnao had a headache, and she just wanted her family to live a quiet life. There is no open space near our house. Let's build wherever there is open space. Anyway, in the stockade, if you lift a leg, you can roar from our house and you can hear it from the other side of the mountain gate, no matter how far away it is. That's right. Even the next mountain is not far away. A stick of incense and a little more time will. It's here too. Ching Xin was glared at by Sue's father before she could finish her words. She stopped talking and came to Su Qingyu's side. After telling Sue's father about building several houses for them, he turned around and told Wei Fucame to allocate a few acres of mountain land for their family to plant nearby. Okay. I'll make the arrangements, Wei Fucame agreed. Knowing that she had many things to do, he took over all the house building and other matters.